Good morning everyone. Today we are going to talk about the thyroiditis. What is thyroiditis? Thyroiditis is just an infection and inflammation of a thyroid gland. It has been classified into it is classified based upon the onset of a disease or a duration of a disease. It is classified into acute, subacute and a chronic thyroiditis. First we'll go about the acute thyroiditis. Acute thyroiditis is usually caused by bacterial infections, especially staph and the strepto. Especially in immunocompromised state, it is immunocompromised state. The organisms like fungal, mycobacterium, and the pneumocystitis can occur in a patient with the immunocompromised state. Then we'll go about how it will present. Usually acute thyroiditis are comparatively rare. It is due to the superficial infection of a thyroid gland. Usually patient presents with pain in the neck, especially in the thyroid, wherever the thyroid gland is there. Usually it is referred to either to the ears or to the throat. On examination, sometimes you will get a tender goiter. Usually it will be asymmetric, means what, one side will be more enlarged compared to the other side. Constitutive symptoms like fever, dysphagia, erythema over the thyroid are common. Especially in children and young adults, the presence of a piriform sinus, a remnant form of a fourth brachial pouch that connects the oropharynx with the thyroid. Such sinuses are predominantly left-sided. Usually will be seen in the young children and the adults. That will also can cause common cause for your acute thyroiditis. Once acute and investigation wise, you can see a raised ESR with the neutrophilic leukocytosis, and the thyroid functions will be usually normal. And FNAC shows infiltration by polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Culture of a same sample can identify organisms. If you see clinically, if you suspect acute thyroiditis, usually after FNAC will send culture sensitivity, will start empirical antibiotic. Usually third generation cephalosporins or a amoxicillin with a clavulanic acid combination will select empirically. Empirical start. Based after 3 to 4 days, once the culture report comes, based upon that, based on culture sensitivity will start the treatment. Then only indication for surgery is the only if there is a localized collection of pus, that is abscess is there in the thyroid gland, that is the indication for drainage. Then coming to the subacute thyroiditis, it is also called as de Quervain's thyroiditis. Who is this de Quervain? Actually, de Quervain is a Swiss surgeon. His full name is Fritz de Quervain. Actually, de Quervain is very famous for your tenosynovitis, especially for the radial thyroid process. He is the one who is the case report of that one. This subacute thyroiditis is also called as granulomatous thyroiditis or viral thyroiditis. Subacute thyroiditis is usually caused by a viral like mumps, Coxsackie, influenza, adenovirus and the echonovirus. Usually whenever there is a subacute thyroiditis, usually we won't attempt to try identify the virus, because usually individual patients are not useful for your management purposes to identify an organism. So we will treat empirically, just like a viral. We won't go which virus it is there. We are not going in detail. Then another causes for subacute thyroiditis is another is the silent thyroiditis, usually seen in the postpartum period. Another causes are mycopodial infection, and other few are drug induced, especially interferon and the amiodarone. Coming to the pathophysiology. Usually pathophysiology of a subacute thyroiditis usually go in stages. Means what? First, when there is a beginning of a subacute thyroiditis, that's we call as thyrotoxic phase. What will happen in this thyrotoxic phase? All the follicular thyroid cells will get destruction. Then there will be a release of a stored thyroglobulin and the thyroid hormones. Okay, what is this thyroglobulin? Thyroglobulin is, it is stored in the thyroid gland. Usually be a circulating T4 and a T3 will happen. Once there is an increased T3 and T4 in the circulation, definitely there will be a suppression of a TSH due to a negative feedback mechanism. Okay, then if you go do investigation like radioiodine uptake study, there will be low or usually undetectable. Especially in these phases, if you go thyroid FNAC, it will show a characteristic patchy infiltration, patchy inflammatory infiltrate with disruption of a thyroid follicles will be seen, and a multinucleated giant cells will be in some follicles we can see, and these follicular changes can progress into a granulomas. That's what is called as granulomatous thyroiditis. Once these initial phases of destructive phase will happen, then after a few weeks, roughly around 4 to 6 weeks, it will go to a phase of hypothyroid phase. Means what? Once all the thyroid, whatever the storage is, it gets depleted of your stores, then the patient will push towards the hypothyroid. Usually in this phase, they will be having a low or usually unbound T4 will be there and a moderately increased TSH levels. If you do radioiodine uptake studies, usually it will be normal, or if even increase as a result of a rise of a TSH. Once after this going a phase of a hypothyroid phase, usually the patients will recover. Usually patients will recover from this phase. Once this patient will become a euthyroid. Most of the patients will become euthyroid. Only after complete result of the usual outcome, some late onset permanent hypothyroidism may occur in roughly around 15 to 20% of the cases, particularly in those with a coincidental already thyroid autoimmunity, which are all patients are there. Then there will be chances of going for permanent hypothyroidism is very, very high. Coming to the clinical, how they will manifest subacute clinical thyroiditis, how they will clinically manifest. Usually they will present as a painful and enlarged thyroid, sometimes accompanied by fever. Means what? Usually there will be mild fever will be there, more of a localized features, more pain in the thyroid gland as well as in a enlarged present, with systemic features like malaise, okay, and upper respiratory tract infection usually may precede the your painful thyroid and the enlarged thyroid. Then features of whether thyrotoxicosis or hypothyroidism depends upon the what phase of illness patient is presenting to you. Okay. Then next that I am going to showing about the, this is the just and the how exactly all these phases will happen, what are the things are going to happen. First you can see in the x-axis, these are the phases: thyrotoxic phase, hypothyroid phase as well as the recovery phase. That is in x-axis, that is what are the clinical phases what we tell. Then in the y-axis we can see all your especially inflammatory markers like ESR is there, then the T3 T4 hormones is there and the TSH is there. Okay, in the first thyrotoxic phase you can see in the ESR starts, ESR at the peak, ESR and both T4 at the maximum levels, TSH has been suppressed because of the T4. Once as the thyrotoxic clinical phase ends, roughly around 4 to 6 weeks, ESR starts coming down and T4 also in the peripheral starts reducing. Okay, TSH starts slightly increasing. Then the patient will push towards the hypothyroid phase. In the hypothyroid phase, what will happen? The T4 starts decreasing, TSH starts increasing. It will take roughly around 3 to 6 months, especially this hypothyroid phase. Once this hypothyroid phase completes, then the patient becomes recover. Usually patients will recover. Okay. Coming to the treatment. The subacute thyroiditis usually don't have any specific treatment. Usually treated empirically, right? Usually NSAIDs are the primary treatment of choice. NSAID is what? That is the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, like usually diclofenac, okay, or any other you will select, or especially aspirin. We should give it a little bit of higher dose, like 600 mg will give every 4 to 6 hours. We will give, okay. If the patient is not adequately improved after NSAIDs, or patient beginning only if he is having a very marked local or systemic symptoms, okay, for these patient will use a glucocorticoids will use. What glucocorticoids will use? Usually we will prefer a prednisolone, okay. Prednisolone around 50 to 40 mg we will select, okay. Depending upon the severity we will give either 15 mg or a 40 mg. The dose is gradually tapered over 6 to 8 weeks. By mistake, if the response of the patient is not good, then we won't reduce the taper the dose. We will try to maintain the dose at maximum how much patient is going to improve. In response to symptoms and the ESR, after that only we will try to reduce. If a relapse occurs during a glucocorticoid withdrawal, dosage should be increased and withdrawal should be more gradual. Then coming to a thyroid function should be usually monitored every 2 to 4 weeks. Usually TSH and a free T4 usually what we will measure. Then anti-thyroid drugs usually they don't have any role or any not helpful in a treatment in a thyrotoxic phase of a subacute thyroiditis. Suppose if the patient is having a thyrotoxic features is there, okay, usually what will prescribe is the usually beta adrenergic blockers. Usually beta adrenergic blockers will ameliorate the symptoms of your thyrotoxicosis. What will select usually is propranolol. Is a very good non-selective beta blocker, very good. Usually we will select what is 40 to 60 mg every 6 to 4 hours we can give. 40 to 60 mg every 4 to 6 hours we can give. Propranolol is a very short acting drug, that's why we are giving so frequently. If you are selecting a long acting propranolol, then we can usually select either 60 mg or 40 mg long acting propranolol once or twice daily. Then especially if the patient is going for a hypothyroid phase, but it is been prolonged, it is not usually 3 to 4 months, 3 to 6 months. If it is getting prolonged, these are the patients, there is a indications for your levothyroxine replacement, okay. But you should not replace a full dose of a replacement for your not required. As I told in a hypothyroid, when I am talking about hypothyroidism, I told you not full dose of our is not required, like 2 to 3 mg, 3 microgram per kg per day, it is not required. Less dose means what? 0.5 micrograms per kg per day is enough for this, because you should always give a lowest possible strength, especially in a subacute thyroiditis. Then coming to a silent thyroiditis. Silent thyroiditis is what? It is just one entity in a subacute thyroiditis. Especially this silent thyroiditis occurs usually in a patient who is already having an autoimmune thyroid. Autoimmune thyroid means what? Usually patient is having a already thyroid autoantibody who is already having. Means anti-TPO antibodies will be positive, or anti-thyroglobulin antibodies are positive. These are the patients who is having a silent thyroiditis. How they will present? Usually the condition occurs in a 5% of the women, usually 3 to 6 months after pregnancy, means after delivery, postpartum, Okay, they will develop all the symptoms. Usually they present like all the clinical features almost similar to your subacute thyroiditis. Almost all the symptoms, almost. Usually they present with a thyrotoxicosis phase first. Okay, after that followed by a hypothyroid, and usually they will recover. That's usually it is common. uh, then how to differentiate whether it is a silent thyroiditis or a subacute thyroiditis? I told in a silent thyroiditis there will be autoantibodies are positive, especially T2 antibodies. Okay, then the ESR in a subacute thyroiditis has been increased, but here in silent thyroiditis it is normal. Then glucocorticoid treatment is not indicated in silent thyroiditis, but it is indicated in subacute thyroiditis. Severe thyrotoxic symptoms can be managed with a brief course of propranolol. As I told in a same thing in a subacute thyroiditis, we also continue the same thing. Then thyroxine replacement may be needed, especially in a prolonged hypothyroidism. If they, that's what I told. Same thing, 3 to 6 months if they are prolonging, then we can give the replacement dose of your thyroxine. Then annual checkup thereafter is recommended for all of your silent thyroiditis. Means because there are always a chances that few patients will go for a permanent hypothyroidism. So you have to go annual checkup there afterwards. Then coming to our next year's your chronic thyroiditis. What is this chronic entity includes? It includes autoimmune disorders, especially focal thyroiditis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, atrophic thyroiditis, Riddle's thyroiditis, and parasitic thyroiditis. It includes caused by echinococcus, strongyloidiasis, cysticercosis, or it may be traumatic after repeated palpation by medical students. It can be happen. Most common Hashimoto's, what we are seeing is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Why this is more common? Because previously when it was there, when around 40 to 50 years back, the common cause for your hypothyroidism is iodine deficiency. Now Hashimoto's autoimmune disorder. Why? Because of more of iodine intake, because of already replacing a salt. That's why it is more common Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is the most common clinical apparent cause for your chronic thyroiditis, an autoimmune disorder that often present as a form or a odd guide or variable size. Then coming to your Riddle's thyroiditis. What is this Riddle's thyroiditis? Riddle's thyroiditis is a rare disorder that typically occurs in a middle-aged woman. Usually they present with an insidious in onset, painless goiter with local symptoms. Local symptoms is what? Thyroid gland starts as compressing of the esophagus as well as trachea, neck veins, or a recurrent laryngeal larynx. This is what are compressing, because the most of Riddle's thyroiditis is going for a diffuse fibrosis. That's what will happen. That's why there is a diffuse fibrosis disrupts the normal gland architecture. Sometimes it can extend outside the thyroid capsule. Despite these extensive histological changes, thyroid function is usually uncommon. Thyroid dysfunction usually, thyroid function will be normal. Then what is the treatment for your thyroid Riddle's thyroiditis? There is usually medical treatment is only is that tamoxifen we can give, because it is an antifibrinolytic. Or if there is a severe compressive symptoms, then we have to use the surgical for reduce the compressive symptoms. Then comes to your sick euthyroid syndrome or non-thyroidal illness. What is the sick euthyroid or non-thyroidal illness? It is not a disease of a thyroid gland. Means the thyroid is just acting like a one of the organ which is usually susceptible because of your systemic illness. Any acute severe illness can cause abnormalities of a circulating TSH or a thyroid hormone levels in a absence of underlying thyroid disease. Okay, this is what is the definition. Any acute severe illness can cause abnormalities of a circulating TSH or a thyroid hormone levels in the absence of thyroid diseases. That is what is called as sick thyroid. Means what? Any severe illness will cause a any sepsis is enough. Any sepsis or due to acute severe stress, there will be a thyroid abnormality we will see. Why we are seeing this thyroid abnormality? Because of a major hormonal changes, because of a release of our cytokines, especially interleukin 6. Unless a thyroid disorder is strongly suspected, the routine testing of a thyroid function should be avoided in acutely ill patients. Means what? We should never either evaluate thyroid dysfunction in any acutely ill patients, because we will get erratic reports. Just because of these erratic reports, we can't able to judge whether regularly it is a thyroid disorder or it is a non-thyroid disease affecting a thyroid gland. So better not to evaluate patients with patients of a acute severe febrile illness. Then what is the most common pattern of hormonal changes seen in a sick thyroid? Is that pattern is decrease in the total as well as unbound T3 level with normal levels of T4 and TSH. Means what? T4 will be reduced, T3 will be reduced, T4 and TSH will be normal. But there is one thing is that suppose if there is the fall in the magnitude of T3 correlates with the severity of the illness. Means what? If there is too much suppression of a T3, then the severity of illness is also very, very high. Then if you whenever you are monitoring a TSH also during acute thyroid illness, there will be interpretation problem will be there. What is that interpretation problem? I'll let you know. TSH levels also correlates challenges in interpretation of a thyroid function in a sick patient. TSH levels may range from less than 0.1 million international units in a very severely ill patient, especially if the patient is on dopamine or a glucocorticoid therapy. Or TSH may be more than 20 during a recovery phase of your sick euthyroid state. The exact mechanism of underlying subnormal TSH we don't know. Then how to diagnosis of the sick euthyroid? The diagnosis of sick euthyroid syndrome is frequently presumptive. Means what? Just you have to correlate everything clinically with the clinical background and the laboratory test you have to correlate. Only resolution of test results with the clinical recovery can clearly establish a disorder. Means what? Once the patient recover from your acutely ill state, okay, then if the tests laboratory tests for thyroid function becomes normal, that only will establish a disorder. Then what is the treatment? Suppose if the patient will evaluate acute febrile illness is there or acutely ill is there, you have a thyroid. It is showing most erratic reports. TSH and T4 will be normal, T3 will be very much depressed. What is the treatment? Still controversies are going on, but most of the authorities recommend just monitoring a patient thyroid function test during recovery without administration of a thyroid hormone unless there is a history or clinical evidence suggestive of your hypothyroidism. Okay, we should not use any so there is no specific treatment for a sick euthyroid states. Then comes your what is there called as one entity is there, especially in a chronic thyroiditis are most of the drug induced. That is called as amiodarone. What is this amiodarone? It is one of an antiarrhythmic agent, right? This amiodarone, it is almost structurally related to a thyroid hormone, and it contains roughly around 39% of your iodine by weight. That's why any patient who is on amiodarone, especially doses like 200 milligram per day, okay, for them they're having a very high iodine intake will be there, okay. That's why there will be a 40 folds increase in the plasma and the urine iodine levels. So this much high iodine levels, if you continue for more than 6 months, then there will be chances of thyroid abnormality we can going to predict. So what are all the effects of this amiodarone on the thyroid function? Is one thing is it can be acute transient suppression of a thyroid function can occur. Second, hypothyroidism in patients susceptible to inhibitory effects of a high iodine load can occur, or there might be thyroid torticosis that may cause either Jod Basidos effect, which I told in hyperthyroidism because of your very high iodine load in the setting of a especially multinodal goiter or a incipient Graves' disease. That's why whenever you are initiating an amiodarone treatment in any patient with cardiac disorder or antiarrhythmic, you should always evaluate a basic thyroid test. Okay, then only you have to start the amiodarone. Then, especially when you are dealing about this amiodarone, one effect will always come to your mind, that is called as Wolff-Chaikoff effect. What is this Wolff-Chaikoff effect? Especially in amiodarone, this Wolff-Chaikoff will get escaped. So what is the treatment? First, any patient with already amiodarone induced thyrotoxicosis there, first you have to stop the drug, replace with other antiarrhythmic suitable drug. Okay, then based upon that there are types of amiodarone induced thyroiditis is there. That is one, type 1 is there, type 2 is there, and type 3 is there. Okay, based upon that, based upon so many investigation, he starts treating this amiodarone induced this one.